Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. A good day, a very good day. What a roller coaster life doing anything to do with Tottenham Hotspur is. Whether you're a fan, a journalist or both, just you don't know what lurks around the corner at Tottenham Hotspur. Sometimes it can be something horrendous. Sometimes it can be something really good like today. It was a long day. Started at 5:30 in the morning for me, and probably many of those who went off on the long journey to Manchester for a stupidly early kick-off in the Premier League. And here I am doing a video at, when am I recording this? Almost 10 o'clock at night. Haven't decided yet. Might put this just out at night rather than waiting until the morning, purely because it's Saturday night and we're all in good spirits at the moment. So why not? A good day though. A good day. Something about the Etihad. Something about it. It's really weird. I don't know why, but we have so many bogey teams that Tottenham have. Clubs that we have a nightmare against. But when it comes to Tottenham and Manchester City, they hate us going there. There's so many City fans just really do dread it. And it's weird because I still dread going there. And I don't know why. Because Spurs actually probably done better there overall in the Guardiola era than they have been tonked. Yeah, there's been a couple of tonkings, but on the whole, there's been some pretty special results there. And this was another one for the books. It was a really, really good performance. We can dive into all the bits and pieces. And I want to talk about loads of little things I noticed as well. At a really good seat, the City press box it's kind of, you've got analysts just in front of you, you've got a dugout that's not too far, and you can see everything going on. It's a really good spot. So as you might have noticed in these, I'm someone that is a bit, I was going to say an observer is the best way to do it. I don't want to sound like I'm some kind of voyeur or stalker type, but I like to notice things. That's the kind of part of my job. I don't want to just write stuff that you guys, or talk about stuff that you guys and girls will just be able to see on the telly, because otherwise what's the point? I think the whole aim of these is to try and give you little bits and pieces that maybe you wouldn't be able to see on your TV screen, or even if you're in the stadium, because the away fans, I could see them over, loads of them, brilliantly noisy throughout, but they're a long way from the dugout, and they're a long way from kind of the little bits and pieces that I might be able to see. So if I can help as the man on the inside, as it were, that's what I'm going to try and do. I want to start with something that Thomas Frank said after the game. And actually, I wasn't even aware of this till I was on the train on the way back to Euston. Really nice comment that he said to BBC. Listen to his interview, and it's kind of in the middle of it. He was asked about the two, because he came with Brentford a couple of seasons back and put in a similarly really good performance with them. And he was asked about the similarities between the two. And he spoke about not entirely the same kind of thing, but there was kind of same philosophies behind it. And then he said, I love my former club, Brentford, and I'm falling in love with this club here. And I just thought it was a really nice early moment. And it's, I don't think any manager, unless I'm wrong, please correct me if I am, I can't remember any manager in recent times kind of talking like that. And it was really struck me. It was quite nice. And the feeling, from what I understand, is very much being reciprocated. There's a lot of people that, I'm not going to say they're falling in love with him, but certainly there's a lot of people that are kind of a quickly sprouting affection, let's call it, for Thomas Frank, and this kind of excitement around what he could do for the club, but also just as him as a person, just what a good guy he is. I think he's gone into Spurs, he's embraced the ideals of the football club, but he's also tried to make really what he sees as key changes to the culture around the training ground and football as well. I mean, on the pitch, we can see what he's trying to do. It's there for all to see. I mean, ahead of the game, be honest, because I'm definitely putting myself in this category. We all wanted him to go with the 3-5-2 from the PSG game. We all thought that worked really well. Use it again, please. Because all of us, we are quite literally sofa managers. But lo and behold, he did his own thing. I think there was a few people when I put the team out was like, oh, well, we're getting stuffed. But what he has gone and done, he's had 3 competitive games thus far, 3 very different tactical setups within each, 3 very different opponents, and each of them really, barring those 5 minutes of being a bit knackered in Udine, should have brought 3 really good victories. And that's incredibly promising and exciting. But this was always going to be the Thomas Frank way. We knew he had his principles, which are built on this kind of aggressive phases of play in different parts of the pitch. But beyond that, his team's going to kind of morph into this, well, just anything he chooses them to be. They're like, I don't know how to describe them, a bit like Venom, aren't they? And that's Vicario's nickname, but just kind of this weird composite that can become anything you want it to be. Play-Doh? Clay? I don't know, clay kind of hardens and stuck as one thing. Whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Give me better examples of things that do that, please. There's probably loads of stuff from movies that I could have used. Was it Morph? Was a TV character for kids years back when I was, actually probably before I was young. I think there were repeats when I was watching it. But anyway, I digress into morphing. And I think Spurs have gone through a series of different managers in recent years. Some have had a very set way of playing regardless of the opposition. Some have had probably maybe overly concerned about the opposition they're facing and have always set up, not quite in fear, but maybe too much respect to the opposition and gone completely the other way. Whereas Thomas Frank, he's somewhere in the middle. He's got, like I said, his set foundations of play, but he always kind of incorporates that alongside different plans of countering what might be thrown at them. He's kind of ready for any eventuality as well. And I think what's key for him, and of course it is really, is that the players have bought into it pretty quickly. I mean, you look at it and it's been a very quick start thus far in a very tactical, heavy kind of system as well. I do think it's so important that Cristiano Romero has bought into it quickly. And of course, he's been rewarded with the captaincy, the new contract and everything. But I think Romero buying into it, getting that new deal, becoming the captain has been this really important like building block for Thomas Frank as well, so early in his tenure. Because let's be honest, and this is what loads of people inside the club have always told me, and actually Postecoglou said this out loud as well, in a way, for where Cuti Romero goes, others follow. So that's the thing. If you get Romero in line and exactly doing what you want him to do, everyone else is going to go, oh, if Cuti's doing it, it must be all right. The guy's won everything. It's such an important thing that maybe, I don't know if it's gone unnoticed or not, but I do think that was such a key thing for everyone else to fall in line behind him as a leader. And like I say, off the pitch as well, Thomas Frank has won a lot of the staff over behind the scenes. He is a really nice guy. And my dealings with him thus far, not just press conferences, but having a real kind of in-depth chat with him, kind of on and off the record as well, and just little moments on the tour. He's a really good guy. He is. He means very well. Everyone I spoke to at all different levels within the club, I'm very fortunate. I've covered the club for, we're approaching 9 years now. So I know lots of people in different departments within the club, whether that just anyone, just people around the training ground of all different jobs and departments and everything. And the universal opinion about him is just that all the interactions have been just so nice with him. He's a thoroughly decent human being, and he makes the effort to try and remember everyone's name that he's dealt with as well. He seems genuinely interested in them. But, and I should always put this caveat, he knows that this is a honeymoon period. He said it himself, I think it was in his first press conference maybe, and his first meeting, he gathered all the staff at Hotspur Way and he told them, we will lose matches. That will happen. All football clubs lose matches. But our time together will be defined by how we react to those disappointments rather than the victories. And I think that is quite an important thing about Spurs. And actually, it's something Postecoglou said as well. It's a club that can very quickly, as recent kind of events have shown us, we can get very disappointed very quickly as a fan base. And we can suddenly get giddy very quickly. And obviously, these videos sometimes represent that. Sometimes I try and be as balanced as I can, but certainly, we know there are aspects to things that just naturally as football fans we love or hate. And look, Thomas Frank is far more balanced even than myself, far more than myself. He is a man that will not be letting things run away from him, his thoughts. He will know that I think the last Spurs manager to win the first 2 games of the Premier League season, also beating Pep Guardiola, albeit at home, was a certain Nuno Espirito Santo. Obviously, he only last a couple of months more at Spurs. Looks like he might not last much longer at Nottingham Forest as well. It's all gone a bit bizarre there. But it feels, hopefully, at this point, that the Thomas Frank era is built on stronger foundations. I think not least because the club kind of has to make good on the decision to hire him in the first place in the aftermath of winning that trophy. So, yeah, I would hope he's in a stronger position. But going back to what I said right at the start about my view of the pitch and the view of everything, watching the technical area around Thomas Frank is an incredibly fascinating experience. I don't know. I've watched it in bits and pieces in these first few games, kind of mainly watching the style of football to understand exactly what he was doing. Whereas I thought today, I get the football a bit more now, so I'm going to really focus on kind of what's happening in that technical area. And it is just, I just found it so interesting, and it took up a lot of my attention. I probably missed little bits and pieces. I had to ask people what had happened because I was watching it. It's very different to how it was under Postecoglou. So Postecoglou, by his own admission, wasn't someone that would go mad in the technical area, would do a lot of stuff with his hands, running around, jumping. It's not like the anti-Antonio Conte, who was just like this ridiculous ball of energy, too much in some regards, really. Whereas with Postecoglou, he very much said, I want to observe a game. I want to watch it almost like, watching a movie at the cinema. I want to understand it. I want to exactly see what's happening, and then I can make better informed decisions. That was his idea. It would infuriate people when things weren't going well, because people would look at him and see that he wasn't doing much, or he would sometimes even have his hand in his pockets on occasions. With the camera would capture a photo of him doing that, and that would infuriate people because they wanted to then go back to the Conte of throwing himself around like a madman and shouting at everyone, which is what he did. And no, the trouble with Conte, he was the another extreme that I think sometimes the players would just stop listening because he was just constantly ranting and shouting. And I think Thomas Frank, again, somewhere in the middle. He does have moments where he's a little bit more kind of focused and observing it, but he often is talking. I think that's his key thing. He's a bit of a motor mouth. He never stops chatting away to people, whether that's his players, whether it's his coaching staff. I think one thing he shares with Postecoglou is delegating. Definitely delegates roles to people. Feels maybe even more collaborative in terms of who speaks to the players. I mean, take example Matt Wells. Matt Wells, I noticed, by the way, Matt Wells, if you're not aware, in charge of the defence, was actually really praised by Thomas Frank after the game for everything he did, because I think there was this really unfair thing with Matt Wells that people just kind of lumped him in as he became the new Ryan Mason. He became like Levy's eye or Levy's man or whatever these things that people decide. And he also got kind of tarred with the defence not being great last season in the league. Again, as I would stress by looking at today again, a defence that didn't have Christian Romero and Mickey van der Ven at its heart for the bulk of it. They're just so different when they play. Even with Spence rather than Udogie, Spencer's been brilliant. We'll talk about him as well. But having a kind of a back five of that kind of nature is so different. It's so different, regardless of who the manager is. But anyway, I digress. Matt Wells, seeing him in this setup, he is thriving. He's doing really well. He's in a setup where the defence is probably also more of the thinking as well, or definitely is more of the thinking too. So he is doing terrific stuff, and Thomas Frank is in constant chats with him in the technical area. He is kind of very quickly becoming like one of his real right-hand men alongside Justin Cochran and Chris Haslam as well. And he was definitely at the forefront a lot, Matt Wells, today. And he was not only talking to Thomas Frank, but they would discuss stuff, and then Matt Wells would often be kind of imparting information to the players as well. And like I say, Thomas Frank pushes for this collaboration. There were quite a few times when he was turning to the other coaches who might have been sitting other bits and kind of almost saying, right, it's your turn. This is your part of the pitch. Get out there, do it. So you'd see Andreas Georgeson sometimes, he would call out and say, right, I want these restarts better. I want this set piece thing. I'm assuming that's what he said, by the way. But suddenly they would kick into action because he was calling them over, and they would be talking to various people, whether it was a throw-in, free kick, or just any kind of restart. And also Fabian Ota, the goalkeeping coach, he would call him out sometimes to have a word with Vicario about something, whether it be his kicking, whether it be his handling, his positioning, set pieces maybe. And I just thought that was really interesting that he was really actively saying, right, come on, it's your turn, you go and do that. It shouldn't be down to me to say that. And that's quite unusual. You know, a lot of managers want to be the sole voice that the players hear, but he is very much a collaborative person. We kind of spoke about that before he came being a thing, but actually seeing it in action is fascinating, because I listened to a few podcasts before he came where he said he is always soaking up opinions. He's always talking to people about what they believe this should be and that should be. And sometimes, obviously, you discount it, but sometimes it's stuff that you can incorporate and you can see a fresh idea of stuff. And I think that's why he's been so successful in kind of his growth, I suppose, as a coach, Thomas Frank. But there's also the analysts. I mentioned them earlier as well. They were sat just kind of there. You can't see off the screen, but they were kind of in the row in front of me, just off to the left. So I got a really good view of what they were doing. Plonking them in the press box. And they're in the press box at Spurs, but they're not really near me. They're kind of off to the right and kind of behind me more than anything. Whereas this time I got to see the way they were interacting. I could kind of see their screens, their laptop screens, but I kind of felt that would be a bit improper of me if I were to go like, "Ooh, what are you doing?" kind of thing. So I didn't really look at that too much. I thought that would be a bit naughty. From what I could kind of, just a quick glance, it was more just lots of files and stuff like that, because they're analysts, that's all it is. But yeah, I didn't want to, I thought that was a bit naughty if I was doing that. But I was more looking at the way they were interacting, and having kind of spoken to lots of people around the club in recent weeks as well. By the way, among the analysts is Joe Newton. You might have noticed when they joined, he was one of the ones that came along from Brentford, very highly rated. There's a great documentary Sky did. It's like a day in the life of Thomas Frank, and within that you get a real insight into Joe Newton as well, and his rise within Brentford, and how he became a real trusted voice, almost the eyes of Thomas Frank, and he just knows exactly what Thomas Frank wants. And he's great at telling him, right, well, this didn't quite work in the game. We need to sort this. This was a really good thing. You could try this. And so he's become this really trusted analyst. So I could see all of these analysts, including Joe Newton, just passing on all of this information to the bench. And I guess there's like really quick video analysis going on as well that's passed down. And from what I kind of understand from speaking to people, but also kind of watching too, is that the analysts are all in constant contact with Matt Wells, with Georgeson, with Justin Cochran as well. Georgeson in his general coach role as well. Don't forget, he also does a general role, but he's also a set-piece coach as well. But there also apparently is Georgeson has a separate direct line to the set-piece analysts, so they can figure out stuff ahead of time and what's going wrong, what needs to be sorted. It's all... The whole video analysis thing is just something, a kind of a department I would love to do a feature on. It's something that I'm not as aware of. And just this kind of, at Brentford, they were really pushing towards the modern edge, cutting edge of that technology. And I think we'll see that at Spurs now, really, really pushed on. Like I said, it's just one big collaborative machine under Thomas Frank. It is, I want opinions from here, there and everywhere. And that will help me form the best possible decisions I can make, rather than a lot of old school managers who are very much like, yeah, I have this idea, that's what I want to do, but thanks for your input even. So yeah, that was really interesting to watch. And Thomas Frank, he needs it to all get better with the coaches as well. His coaching meetings at Brentford each day would be about 15 minutes. That would all they would need to kind of impart everything that they knew he needed to know. On tour, he told us at Spurs, it's about an hour. They're still really working out a lot of the processes, understanding what each other needs and what Thomas Frank wants from stuff. I asked him actually on Friday, yesterday, what where they were at with that. Have they knocked it down even more? And he said, well, it's about 57 minutes. He said, I knocked 3 minutes off it. And yeah, a lot of work, he said, still to do to kind of streamline the processes and the whole coaching setup. So it's really interesting. But look, if all of the above makes you think Thomas Frank is all cuddles and happiness, I have misled you slightly. He is definitely not just like a Care Bear or something that you can give a big hug to. He is only one moment away from unleashing the Danish glare that he does, his really wide eyes he does, and also, how do I put this? Some choice words, often ones that I would not be able to repeat on here. He is a man that, yes, as a lot of managers, obviously in the dugout of my many years of covering sport and football as well, you know, managers like a good swear word. And Thomas Frank is no different to that as well. So even though his players were excellent today at the Etihad, they got to hear his wrath, let's put it that way. There was one moment in the first half when Jed Spence came over and there was a throw-in, and you could see Andreas Georgeson got up to kind of sort out a throw-in routine, and Spence just went and just threw a really quick one backwards. It was like a nothing throw. It did nothing. And Thomas Frank went ballistic at him, and so did Georgeson as well, because they were going to set up a big long throw into the box. They're all ready to do that. Actually, that reminds me, I don't think I'd put these in my notes. I don't think I was going to mention it. There was quite a clever fake long throw in the second half. Kudus was about to take it. We were a bit like, oh, we didn't know he was one of the ones that could take a long throw. And as he ran up and was about to do that, he just did a quick one. I think it was to Paulinho, who knocked it back to him, and he crossed it in, and Richarlison, I think, just headed over the bar. So, yeah, fake long throws we get as well. But yeah, this Jed Spence one, my goodness, he got it in the ear. Because, against City, that could be an important thing. A long throw in the box, it was in a good position. And yeah, he just did this really naff throw back that I think ended up getting passed back into the Spurs half as well. It didn't really do anything. What else did I see him go mad at? Oh, Brennan Johnson. Brennan Johnson, even though he scored a goal, he was on the end of wrath. It was when Spurs broke away. They had about, I think it was maybe a 4-on-3 situation. It was a really good situation. And Brennan Johnson, for some unknown reason, cut inside and just curled a shot miles over. And Thomas Frank was not happy with that. Actually, there was another Brennan Johnson moment when Brennan Johnson blocked a free kick and then kicked it back to where he thought it should be, and the referee booked him for kicking the ball away. And Thomas Frank was like banging his head as if saying, "What are you doing? What a stupid yellow card!" Actually, it was two of them. The two of them got both 2 each. Jed Spence got late on in the game. You might remember, went on this great run on the left-hand side in like the 90th, 91st minute maybe. And he just killed himself in doing so. He was so knackered. He got stuck up the pitch. And Thomas Frank and Matt Wells were going, get back. They were just worried that if they nicked one goal, maybe they could push for a late one. Obviously, probably the residual memories of what happened in Udine against PSG as well. And yeah, Jed Spence was like, so lolloping really slowly back. And they were going, come on. They were getting really annoyed with him, and he did eventually get back. But to be fair to Jed Spence, he'd done a lot of running in the game. Him and Porro getting up those flanks. Even with they switched to a back three right at the end, and he was probably like, I don't want to run anymore. But yeah, it was just fascinating watching him kind of doing these things. And I'd say the final whistle was back to cuddles and happiness from Thomas Frank anyway. Because Spurs marshalled City perfectly. They really did. It was such a good performance. And I don't know if I said this at the top or not. He becomes the 6th Tottenham manager in a row to win a game with a clean sheet against Guardiola at some point in their reign. And he's done it in his first meeting against Guardiola. I think he's actually only the 3rd manager to win. I think it might be away against Guardiola with 2 different clubs. I think, funny enough, I think it's Mourinho and Conte, the other 2 as well. One was Mourinho with Spurs. I don't think Conte's were with Spurs either. Could be wrong, but I think that was the case. Trying to remember random stats that were in my head. But the goals, very quickly. Brennan Johnson, of course. Johnson again. Quick break. Porro knocks it onto Sarr. Sarr flicks it on. Richarlison runs on. Pulls it perfectly across to Johnson. Very Postecoglou goal, really. The ones that we saw on the training ground each week at Hotspur Way. Obviously, linesman put the flag up first. It was not offside. As soon as we saw the first replay, we were like, it does not look offside. And VAR ruled it out. Praise the Lord for VAR. Second goal was, if the first one was Postecoglou-ish, the second one was very much a Thomas Frank pressing goal. James Trafford tried to play the ball out. I think it was to Nico Gonzalez. Pat Matasar comes out of nowhere, gets a toe to it, knocks it sideways. Richarlison has it kind of at his feet. Trafford dives out, pushes it to the side. There is João Paulinho to smash home his first goal for Tottenham Hotspur. Second half, I think we really expected City to come out flying, going at Spurs. Never really happened. I mean, Guilherme Vicario's 2 real saves of note were in the first half. One very, very good one, actually, at the feet. It was Marmouche, wasn't it, I think. But yeah, second half, probably largely untroubled, really. Just the defence was so good and the 2 midfielders in front of them. And if anything, it was Spurs probably had the better chances. Richarlison had 3 headed chances I can remember. Solanke had a chance saved. The follow-up was Odegaard was saved. Odegaard had another shot before that when Bergvall teed him up. I think Spurs had 12 shots to City's 10. 5 on target to City's 4. They were the better team on the day. Yeah, the first half an hour or so, as Thomas Frank said, probably City were on top. But on the whole, I think Spurs fully deserved their victory. It was a really good one. And when that final whistle blew, those Spurs fans were singing, Manchester City, it's happened again. Which, yeah, another win at the Etihad Stadium. I asked Thomas Frank after the game what he made of it all. And he said, I'm very delighted. Extremely proud of the players' performance. I think it was an exceptionally good performance. I think the first 35 minutes, we know a couple of things. We know it's always going to be difficult to play against City, and here at the Etihad, it's even more difficult. The first 35 minutes I thought was fairly even, but with City on top. I think they were more on top than us. There was a big mentality shift in terms of staying in the game and keeping doing what we wanted to do, but scoring a great goal. Maybe that changed a little bit of momentum, but we definitely stayed on top and went 2-0 up. Second half, I think we were very good. The big spell where we could think that they would put pressure on us, I think we were very aggressive in the high pressure, that we were very front-footed with the mindset to constantly go for the 3-0 goal. And then I must say that the clean sheet makes me very happy. It's a big thing we've been working on, not on clean sheets, as that's easier said than done, but on the defensive side of the game, high pressure, middle block, low block, defend the box mentality, blocking shots, everything. Because if you can get clean sheets, you're closer to winning a game. And also last year, we had 6 clean sheets. So yeah, that's very big for me. And of course, that's a big thing. Spurs have already got 2 clean sheets in their first 2 games. And yes, only the 6 last year. I do. Those blocking games and drills and competitive things they do in training, you see them in every game. The way they throw themselves in front of the ball is just... I've never seen such a direct correlation between training and match situations as I have probably with that drill. It is phenomenal. The amount of players that throw themselves in front of stuff, which before felt like a desperation thing, whereas for now it just feels like part of their game. And it's very difficult for teams to get shots away at goal. And I think it's near impossible really to pick a shining man of the match player out of the performances because there were so many good ones. I know Pat Matasol won the man of the match award and he was terrific. Richarlison duly claimed the trophy in the dressing room, as he always does in his very cheeky way. But yeah, you could go through the whole team really and pick out terrific performances. I thought Vicario, like I said, 2 vital saves in the first half that set up the win really by doing that. Some of his kicking, his short kicking in the second half was a little bit scary, but there were some nice longer kicks he did. It was a short kick, so a bit like, no, Vic, no. I thought Porro was excellent other than one undercooked header that he sent back to Vicario in the first half, which gave Marmoush a chance. His quality on the ball, the amount of times he was hitting diagonal passes was just so good. I love the fact that the fullbacks at Spurs are so different. He just offers such a different kind of game. Actually, he went on a really good late run as well. That was the one that ended up with Bergvall passing it to Odegaard to shoot wide. Spence just never stops running. Sometimes takes a bit more on than he should, but on the whole, he's just incredibly composed, and he is very good against very difficult wingers. As he proclaimed himself on Instagram, if you haven't seen it already, he's put a post up that says, "Bring me your favourite winger." Because he's had some very good games against some top wingers, hasn't he? Just in recent weeks alone. He's, I don't think it's long. I think Thomas Tuchel must be thinking, we should have a look at him, whether it's on the left or the right. He's probably earned himself at least to be looked at. I think he would be harshly done by. I think he's one of the best fullbacks right now in the Premier League in terms of form. I know it's only 2 games in, but still. If you're going to name an England squad, which they are, hey, Tommy boy, take a look at Jed. Although we're always in that situation, aren't we, where we want to see them recognised, but we don't really want them to go away and potentially get injured or tired. And like I said, look, it makes a huge difference for any Spurs manager to have Christian Romero and Mickey van der Ven alongside each other. They complement each other so well. I don't mean they're saying to each other, no, you're good. I mean, complement each other's styles. And They were both superb today, absolutely superb. Romero led the way for me, booming challenges, one of which actually impressed the person he crunched into, Nico Gonzalez. He smashed into him, took the ball away, and afterwards Gonzalez just kind of turned around to him and went, like, as if saying, "Wow, that was really good." It was unexpected, but it was a nice little moment as well. And Romero's also on the wrong end of one of the poorest yellow card decisions I think you'll see this season. He made this great challenge. You saw the ball fly out in an opposite direction, and the linesman flagged and they gave him a yellow card. I've watched it back, and I do not understand why in the world that was even a foul, let alone a yellow card. It's absolutely insane. But hey, look, Romero topped the defensive stats on the day. 6 ball recoveries, 3 interceptions, 2 tackles, 1 block, 3 clearances, and 2 headed clearances. Van de Ven, very good alongside him. Got away a bit with a potential penalty. I felt. I think he caught, was it Oscar Bob on the foot early in the second half, but then made up for it with a brilliant kind of racing back sliding block on, I think it was Phil Foden that he did it on. It was so good with about 12 minutes to go. You could probably say the penalty incident was probably balanced out by the fact that, I mean, there was a moment when Trafford came out and like flattened Kudus with a really kind of high foot, which I thought could have been something that was never really looked at. Instead, they looked at Porro being tripped, which he was, but it was outside the box. And there was João Palhinha. The on-loan 30-year-old could end up really being one of the bargains of the summer if he keeps going at the rate he's going at. Look, it's no secret, I think, that Thomas Frank would have liked to have brought Christian Norgard in. But I think by the time he kind of was in place, Norgard was really kind of set his sights on Arsenal. But I would say that Palhinha feels probably as perfectly fitting a cog in the Frank machine, to be honest. I feel like, and I know some people are going to go, what? But I kind of feel he's brought a lot of what Spurs missed when Højbjerg left, but with a better all-round game. Hopefully you understand what I mean. Just that presence that would sit in front of the defence, mop up, give them this protective shield, be a leader, talk to other players, bring that experience, but technically, for me, a better player than Højbjerg in his all-round game. I did always think that Højbjerg was kind of undersold a bit by people as well. I think he was better technically than people kind of gave him credit for, but I think Palhinha for me is on another level. I just thought Palhinha was brilliant today. He won more duels, 8 of them, made more tackles, 4 than any other player on the pitch. And when he made one terrific block in the second half, he like celebrated like he just scored a goal. I love it when they do that, defenders, because that's their version of a goal. And just when you're alongside the ridiculously composed Rodrigo Bentancur, like if you look up in a dictionary, you don't really have pictures in a dictionary, but if you look up the word composed, it probably just has Rodrigo Bentancur drinking some mate. The two of them together, there's incredible potential for Spurs as a kind of a powerhouse duo in the middle who can both get forward as well, but can screen that defence brilliantly against the tougher opponents. I asked Thomas Frank about Palhinha and that duo, and he kind of took a chance to talk about a lot of the transfer questions that he was blasted with in his press conference yesterday. He said, I think it's fair to say that we got a few questions about the transfer market yesterday. A lot about why not and what if and all that. What is 100% sure is we brought 2 top players into the club, Kudus and Palhinha. Both of them have performed very well, which I'm very pleased with. Then Palhinha, yeah, wow. You know, sometimes players need confidence, they need to be on top. And I don't think he's fully fit yet where I want him to be, but I'm very pleased with his performance. He's definitely helping the team. And I think TNT Sport got him after the game as well. And he spoke about Frank bringing him to Spurs. He said, the coach pushed me to come here, showed me the project. It's such a great club. I'm really glad to be in the Premier League again. I'm so happy, me and my family. Now I want to enjoy this top club and top atmosphere again. It's funny, there was another reporter that normally covers Manchester that I know, Manchester clubs. And he said to me, like, yeah, but Spurs, he'll probably be one of those where he stays on loan and then Spurs don't buy him because he's a bit older at the end of it. I was kind of thinking, I hope he has a great season first. That will define things. But I hope he is someone that changes that mentality at Spurs. That if he has a terrific season, and yes, he'll be 31 by the time next summer comes around, but if he is good enough, then pay the money and keep him in that team, because someone in that position is going to have a fair few years ahead of them. And he could be a real linchpin in this team if this continues in this fashion. It's very early days, but if he continues in that way, if you get the Palhinha that was at Fulham, like Thomas Frank said, if he's got his confidence back as well. But yeah, no, so I thought he was excellent. I mean, Pat Matasar. Pat Matasar. He is going to be a Pat Mata superstar, isn't he, in this Thomas Frank system? It just, because it's so heavily kind of on the tactical element as well, that is something I feel like Sarr just gets. If you want something carried out, Pat Matasar will carry it out for you. And he's got the energy and the technical ability to do it as well. I think he's just thriving. So good to see. Kudus, I thought, was very good again. Strength, dribbling. Every time he got the ball, City were just like, oh, leave us alone. And it was excellent. Johnson, I've seen a lot of people saying all he did was score. I'd urge you to rewatch it. I was kind of, as well as the technical area, I was trying to pay a lot of attention to things that Johnson was doing, and he worked really hard defensively, kept coming back. Actually played as a number 10 for a spell as well, which I think is something he did as a youngster quite a lot, was a number 10. He had this little 5 minutes or so when he was spraying passes out to Kudus on the other side. And yeah, I just think he works a lot harder and does a lot more work in front of Spence than people give him credit for. Yeah, there was the odd moment when he didn't do things right, like that break when he took a shot and he really didn't need to. But he does have this remarkable ability to get into brilliant positions to score goals. And Frank called him the team's deep runner, I think was how he referred to him in yesterday's press conference. I think that's a good way of saying, 24 years old, and he just knows when the ball's going to be in a certain place. A bit like, I know it's different roles, but remember we used to always say this about Lampard. He had this great ability at Chelsea to get in the right positions in the box at the right time. And I think Brennan Johnson has got that exact ability. And, it's back-to-back goals now, or goals in back-to-back games. And I think he'll score a lot more goals this season. He could have another very big season. Bear in mind, he's doing it on the left, in a position that is not his natural one. And he is still contributing and scoring goals that are important goals. I do think people are just so harsh on him. I think people kind of see some of the things he struggles with. And he said himself he needs to kind of improve beating his man 1v1. But I think everything else he brings to the wing role, I know that's a key element. And it is something, like I said, he's admitted himself he has to improve on. But I think there's so much more to his game that people, because they don't like maybe his style of game, they don't notice a lot of the work he does. And I think that's why managers keep picking him there, because he works incredibly hard in both directions as well. But yeah, I thought it was good. And at the end, I can't remember if it was Pat Matasar, someone pushed him towards the Spurs fans because they were singing Johnson again to him. And it's a great chant, It reminds me of that run of games where he scored in every game. Oh, it's getting late. You can tell the words are stumbling. But also, of course, that night in Bilbao. It's one of those. And they were singing Waka Waka at the start. We won it in Bilbao. I love it. Please keep singing that all the time. It is one of my favourite Tottenham chants now. It just transports me straight back to that night in Bilbao. So yeah, what else we got? Oh, Richarlison. Never mentioned Richarlison. I thought he was very good again. And he just keeps showing it. If he can stay fit, he is just such a good striker in the Premier League. And also, if, and I know it's a big if he can stay fit, it's very difficult to envisage someone else that you could bring in that would do a better job than him. And I know you could say, player X is scoring 40 goals a season in this division in Europe, in one of Europe's other leagues. But that doesn't mean they come into a Premier League side, and especially Thomas Frank's system, and perform as well as Richarlison is within it. Even when he's not scoring, he is this incredible nuisance. And there was like loads of the Man City reporters around me were all going, God, this is a great version of Richarlison. I've never seen him play like this since his Everton days. And it's true, he looks... and I don't want to jinx him because it's Richarlison, so fingers crossed whatever I've got to do. Is there any wood? I don't think there's any wood near me. Oh, there is over there. I'm technically going to touch the programmes that made of kind of paper, waxy paper. But yeah, he is in a really good place right now, or he appears to be. And Thomas Frank told us yesterday about how on the first day of pre-season, Richarlison knocked on his door and said, I want to stay at this football club. And Thomas Frank just said, perfect, I want you to stay as well. And since that point, he has done everything asked of him. They kept him out of the Reading game right at the start of pre-season just to keep him building up and ticking over. And now he's in this position where he's playing the bulk of each game. And he's keeping Solanke out of the side right now. There will be a time after international break when there'll be a game every 3 days. And the two of them are going to be a really terrific duo to kind of rotate between. They're going to be so good. I just hope he keeps fit. It's the big question mark around him. But yeah, I'm very much of that opinion that I think it's very easy for someone to say, oh, I would sell him and I would bring in player X. But player X is not a guaranteed player to do that well. We've seen so many players over the years. Spurs have bought some of them that have scored goals galore elsewhere and have come to Tottenham, come to the English game, and have just been like, this isn't for me. And Richarlison, it is for him. And he's a very, very difficult striker for defences to play against. City hated playing against him today. And that's what you want, really. So, yeah. So, hopefully he keeps going and how he's doing. And the subs all kind of contributed. Solanke, Odegaard and Bergvall all contributed. They either fashion chances for themselves or others. But, look, there's no getting away from it. Spurs need more depth. We know that. As is often the case at the club, you look at the 11 like today and you think, okay, that's an 11 that can go out there and it can win at the Etihad. It can beat a big team. But you need to do that consistently. And that has been the thing that Spurs have kind of come up short with. Because, if you take a couple of players out of that 11 today, are there similar players to step in for them? And the answer is probably not. In certain areas, maybe, but not in many of the areas. And if the fixtures pile up, which we know they're going to, and you don't have the required squad to handle that, we're just going to have last season all over again, but probably without the trophy at the end of it. We're just going to have the doom and gloom. So, yeah, they need to sort that. I kind of asked loads of questions. We all asked loads of questions yesterday at the press conference, and one of mine was essentially saying to Thomas Frank, look, from the outside looking in, you signed Kudus. The only new faces you've got are Kudus and Paulinho. Yet, you've sold Sonny, and James Maddison is now out for most of the season with an injury. So essentially, is your squad any real different, particularly different in terms of numbers and strength, to the one you started and inherited before the window opened? And he was like, I guess it's 2 in, 2 out. So it is similar. And that's a big problem. And he didn't say that, that's me saying that's a big problem, because ultimately the aim of a transfer window is to improve your squad, not to end up with exactly what you started with. That is not a good transfer window unless you're desperately just trying to keep players and that's your only aim. Because look, you lose Paulinho, you lose Kudus, your squad is worse off for it. Spurs fans still unhappy, and understandably so, with this transfer window. What they see is a lack of backing for Thomas Frank. I mean, failed attempts in there as well. And I've said before a million times, everyone else is spending big money. We saw Eze, unveiled today at that club down the road, and Spurs are not matching anywhere near what has been spent at those clubs. And yeah, the fans are not happy. They were singing "We Want Levy Out" about 50 seconds in was the first one I heard. I think they did so again when Spurs were 2-0 up, and they did it when I was saying about the Johnson again chant right at the end of the final whistle. I think they pretty much went straight from that into "We Want Levy Out" again. So they were doing it through good and bad times, and he was there. Look, he always has claimed, and people around him have claimed, that Daniel Levy is not bothered by criticism, and he even said in that Gary Neville interview, which was an interesting one, I'm being very interesting. I did not think it was a particularly great interview in terms of learning anything new. But yeah, he said in that he thinks people after he's gone will appreciate what he's done. But despite all of that, he'll be very aware of this feeling within the fan base that while Thomas Frank is doing everything possible for Tottenham, maybe those above him are not. That feels like that's the suggestion from these angry fans. Certainly spoke to loads of terrific Spurs fans on the way up, on the way back as well, and yeah, that's just the general feeling from people. Really nice people. I'm very, very fortunate that people in the real world are always very nice to me. I'd say 99.9% of people online are very nice to me as well. You get the odd one that just gets things in their head that they've just decided, even though whatever I write and say often says completely opposite of what they think. But what are you going to do? You're not going to change people's views when they're deeply entrenched. But yeah, that was the general theme, that Spurs were going to pass another key moment to kind of push on, and let it pass them by. And look, I know it's been a tough week for Spurs, but today was a good day. Not only did Spurs go and win at City in a really important game, I felt, for early in the Thomas Frank tenure, but also the women's team. They went to Arsenal. They won as well. I think it was 4-3 pre-season friendly they had there. That's a big thing as well. Martin Ho, the new manager there. So it's a good day, but you need to kick on from good days. You can't just like celebrate and slap each other's backs and have a party about it. You've got to go then on and push on from that. And that's what they've been accused of not doing in the past. This feels like one of those crossroads moments. I did think it was quite interesting. You might have seen on Instagram, it's gone around social media. Savinho's agent, Rodrigo Zitel, was at the Etihad Stadium today. Obviously, along with both clubs' powers that be. Spurs, certainly, Daniel Levy, Jan Langer, Vinay Venkateshan were there. And obviously all the City bigwigs. And look, if you're talking about pushing on a key moment, make a big bid for Savinho. Bring that man in. That would be a display of Spurs' desire to kind of back Thomas Frank. From what I understand at this exact moment that I'm recording this, and I'm very wary that the transfer window can change at any point, but at this moment, the road towards Savinho is not a closed one at this moment, or certainly all hope of signing him is not dead at Tottenham Hotspur. Let's put it that way at this exact moment. That could be different within an hour or two's time, but certainly I do wonder whether any discussions went on today among all of those parties just happening to be in the same place at the same time. Look, if Spurs go in there and make an offer that City can't refuse in true Godfather style, then there's a player that wants to come to Tottenham who today, would have seen Tottenham do what they did as well and think, well, that could be a project that could be pretty cool. I could play almost pretty much every week. It's a World Cup year. And if Pep doesn't want a player that wants to go elsewhere, and maybe they look to sign Rodrigo, and there's a whole little pathway there of doing it, I would be so excited about Savinho. You've heard me talk about him. There's no point me going down that road again. But in terms of potential, I just think he's one of the most exciting players around right now. 21 years old. He was only 20 in the Premier League last season. He was getting double figures in assists, tearing defenders apart in the way he played. So much more to come from him. He has got a huge ceiling, and that's the only reason for me that I kind of feel like that's why City are like, well, why do we want to let him go? Have another Cole Palmer situation. But from what I'm saying, at this exact moment of recording this, I should caveat that with that, it's not a completely dead end right now. So fingers crossed something comes of that. Look, if it doesn't, then Johan Langer's got a list of lots of other people. I think there's some names that haven't come out yet as well that will maybe emerge late on, as often as the Langer way. We know that they're looking for a 10, a winger and a centre-back. Whether this late, there's 7-8 days left. If they can do all three of those is another thing. Whether they have to combine it, so maybe it's a number 10 who can be a winger. I mean, Savinho technically can play as a 10 as well. He can also play on both sides. But yeah, we'll see. And Savinho, like I said, I think Spurs need experienced heads, but it's not an age thing. Like Savinho is only 21, but he's got terrific experience already in the Premier League, the Champions League, Girona as well. This is what I mean. I think this is what Thomas Frank said a couple of weeks back. It's not just about signing a 38-year-old or something. It's about signing a player like Kudus has got Premier League, Champions League experience as well. It kind of the age isn't the important thing. It's their ability to hit the ground running. And yeah, I think they're the kind of players they need. I wouldn't be desperate to see them signing young players with only potential right now. I think that was last summer. I think that was the thing, because Thomas Frank started his tenure well. Its first few games have been really good, but then so did Postecoglou back in 2023. We all raved about those first 10 games. But then the following year, after finishing fifth, he was handed one senior player and a bunch of teenagers. So, this is where Spurs need to make these steps, these strides to move on. Daniel Levy's made his expectations very clear. We know that. And now I guess his and Tottenham's actions must underline those words rather than just have them as empty promises and like just floating through the air. Because I do feel like Thomas Frank's Tottenham Hotspur could be something very special. But as I said at the start of this, his whole ethos is collaboration. He cannot do this by himself. Tottenham, you need to help this man. There you go. Right, I'm going to head off now. I've still got a little bit of work to do, but I thought I would pop this out there. It depends how long it takes to upload. It might be a late night one, but if you're up late on a Saturday night, please do watch this. But you might be watching this on Sunday morning, by which time, I don't know, Savinho Road may have closed, or it may be that it's fully open. But certainly, as of this moment, that was something I was hearing. It wasn't dead yet, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But yeah, like I said, in the time since I was told, it might have even changed by the time I upload it. But hey, that's a transfer game. It's something that's what you run the risk of when you do these videos, and you talk for almost an hour. But anyway, time to head off. We'll probably do another one in the week if anything exciting happens. But if not, I will be back after Bournemouth on, is that Saturday? Another Saturday game? It is Saturday, isn't it? Yes, it is. Right, time to head off and enjoy the rest of my Saturday evening after a really good Tottenham Hotspur day. Now it needs to be a really good Tottenham Hotspur week without the matches. That would be great. Right, time to head off. Have a good one. Stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.